Welcome to the latest episode of Five on the Floor on the Five Reasons Sports Network. Thanks for joining us on your favorite podcast app on Apple, Spotify, or Apple Podcasts, on Android, Spotify, or the Five Reasons YouTube channel. Also, make sure you subscribe to Off the Floor, especially now. Draft channels, transaction channels. Heat fans are going all day long there. We know a lot of you on Twitter. That's where you found us, but we take everything good now from Twitter and we move it here. So basically, it catalogs it for you in different channels. Find us with the link in the description here. You'll bypass the Apple upcharge. Pay the $2.99 a month. You get sick of us, you can cancel at any time. Also, check out Prize Picks. Use the code 5 FIVE. Put down your $5. You get $50 to play right away. Here, you can be really successful like me, or you can be really unsuccessful like Brady. But either way, put down the code 5, get your $50 to play right away. I'll get to more of that later. Play across the sports spectrum, legal in the state of Florida, up to 6 players together. It's all there. We talk about it all the time, but use the code FIVE. And now, today's episode.
Mercy, luxurious, Heat Nation, yeah, Mercy and Lago, down to Biscayne, yeah, five on the floor, ride for my dogs, where here's the thing, you can check the score, hustle hard, couple scars, wearing bubble frogs, down to Biscayne. Kept the floor playing, got it all banned. Y'all seen the block, stop with one hand. And Pat we trust, Inspire have the guts. We're here to bring the heat, y'all can hang it up.
Welcome to Five on the Floor, a daily insider show on the Miami Heat and the NBA, featuring Ethan Skolnick, Greg Sylvander, Alex Toledo, Brady Hawk, and others from the Five Reasons Sports Network. Also, make sure to subscribe to Off the Floor for the most heat anywhere.
All right, welcome back to Five on the Floor. Here's today's floor plan. I'm Ethan Skolnick. You can follow me at Ethan J. Skolnick on Five Reasons Sports. We got Brady Hawk. You can follow me at Brady Hawk 305. If you haven't figured out right now, we're kind of running two tracks because the Heat are kind of running two tracks. So we're exploring the Kevin Durant stuff. And recent episode I did with Alex, other episodes are up. Can they get him? Would they extend him? Should they extend him? Who are the competitors in the way? So we got those episodes. But if they don't trade for Kevin Durant by next Thursday, by the way, there will be a draft party at the arena, and Brady, myself, and Alex will all be there, and we'll be recording from there. If they don't make a trade by then they might actually pick a player. And so I've had Adele on several times, and he's doing a draft series with us. You can follow him at Digital Adele, and he's breaking down all the players. Now, Brady's had an opportunity to break down some of the players. We are not a monolithic network, no matter what everybody thinks. And so I wanted to get Brady's view on some of the guys that he likes at 20, assuming they pick at 20, or that they don't pick at 20 and then trade the player somewhere else. So, of course, the Heat have picked in this space a lot in recent years. They got Tyler at 13. They got Bam at 14. They got Jaquez. Where was Jaquez? Was he 19, I believe, something along those lines? 17, 18, 19?
Somewhere in there.
Jovic was 27th. Ware was 15th. So they're used to picking in this kind of 13th through 30th spot. They got 20. This is the Golden State pick, and they don't have their own pick, which was 15. So, Brady, you've broken down the film on these guys, an opportunity to look at them. How many did you, on your first thread, also check out Brady Hawk 305 for his draft threads, and also on Off the Floor. How many did you feature on your first thread?
So just 3 in the first one. I'm going to keep doing a lot of these, but this was kind of like I did kind of 3 different types of skill sets, because it does feel like there's kind of different tiers here with different types of players. And as much as we talk about it, it's a weird dynamic, because does Miami go like best player available, or do they go fit? Because I think you can make a case for either, because there's been times when guys have slipped and they haven't gone with that guy. So honestly, I think it's almost like a different tier for them, where they draft based on their best player available. And it's most of the time that's not the best player available that's on most teams, boards.
Right.
So that's what makes it so different, and why they've been so successful in this range. So it's funny when we talk about like the 2 tracks, which, by the way, we've been doing this exact thing how many off seasons in a row, where we've been talking about the guy they could trade for or the guy they fall back for in the draft. And like the
did
track
we do
record,
an episode? Did we do episodes, Brady, on Dave, at which I think we did like which minimum free agents they would, like the Dennis Smith Jr. episode, right? Like,
don't bring back that off season. Don't make me relive it. But we've like every time we've done this exact thing, the player in the draft is what they fell back on. And honestly, and realistically, it's been what they've been it's what they're best at. Like that's kind of been their best asset as kind of an organization over the past few years. Has been what they found in this range, because as we've said, they have not tanked. They haven't had, a ton of high lottery picks, and they've found some gems in this little range. So credit to their scouting department. And this is where we are. So yeah, I ended up doing 3 different types of players. I think this is the interesting thing, and I'll ask you this before we start, because they do lean in certain skill sets. I don't think they're going to limit themselves and say, okay, they're not getting this type of player just because they're a certain position. But I look at it like this: like, I don't see them going out there and really targeting like a pure big inside big. I mean, after drafting Kalel, after having Bam in the fold, and they're trying to work this 2-man combo, after, it's not the direction of this team. I just don't see them going in that direction in general. If it's the best player available, I still don't really see that being the direction. So that limits that. If it's going to be a big, and that's somebody that I'm going to talk about, they have to be able to have upside as a shooter, as a scorer, as that type of stuff offensively. And here's my other criteria that I don't see them leaning in this direction. They've had guys in the past that they've drafted where they've had like wonky shots from the outside, where like they need to be tweaked, they need to be worked on, they need like a lot of work. I think with the roster that we've been talking about, the fact they need shooting, they need. I don't say specialists, because that's a certain area. They don't usually draft for specialists, but like they need somebody that's able to shoot the basketball, that has the potential to be a decent shooter in the NBA. So there's a couple guys that I'm looking at. Like, I just don't see them leaning in a direction where they're going to have like a long-term plan to tweak a guy's shot, especially what we've seen with like not taking shots at the guys they drafted, but like there's tweaks with Nico, and he's gotten better to this point. Jaime's going through it right now where they're trying to make these adjustments. I just don't think that's going to be the case again. They need shooting on this roster. So however they get it, I think they'll lean into it.
Couple points I want to make here. First thing, you mentioned taking a player that kind of fits what they do, as opposed to taking someone who's sort of outside of their comfort zone, so to speak. I think Jovic was outside of their comfort zone, and I think we're seeing that. And we don't know if they're going to extend him. We don't know if they're going to trade him. He has certainly shown some of the skills outside of the injuries, shown some of the skills that they liked and that we like, but also they've had trouble finding a fit because they are a little stuck in their ways about how they approach offensive basketball in particular. And so a guy like Nico, who is sort of out of the box for them, I think there's been some challenges there. The second thing I want to mention before we get to your 3 players is that we don't know if they're going to trade this pick, but there's also the possibility that they keep this pick and still get Durant or somebody like that. I don't think that's going to happen, because it seems like Phoenix wants picks in this year's draft, and it's the only one that the Heat have. So it seemed like it'd be this pick, and I guess the 2030 pick or whatever. But there is a slight chance of that. And I always go back to 2004 with this, which is that they were coming off a season, and a lot of this depends on when a move is made, right? So in the NBA, free agency comes after the draft. In the NFL, it's the other way, right? Okay, so free agency is first, and then the draft. And because of that, and the Durant trade may happen first, so we believe it's going to happen first, but there may be other moves that happen in free agency. And this is where it gets a little complicated, because in 2004, they had a young team. They had Wade. This was coming off the season where they went 42-40, got to the second round, lost to Indiana in 6 games. Dwayne's rookie year. They had Wade, they had Karan, they had Lamar before they made the trade, right? And so that was their core. They also had Eddie Jones and Brian Grant, but that was their core. And UD, who started who played a lot as a rookie, and they went into the draft and they took another young player. They took a really young player. They took the youngest player in the draft. They took Darrell Wright. And Jameer Nelson was sitting right there. And Jameer Nelson had started for 4 years at St. Joe's and led them deep in the tournament. He was a polished point guard coming into the NBA. He would have been perfect. And the funny thing about this is I heard that Stan Van Gundy was the one who didn't want him. And then Stan ended up loving him when he got to Orlando. But Jameer would have been perfect for the team that was ultimately assembled once they acquired Shaq, because he was ready to play point guard with that team. He would have been much better than Damon Jones from jump, okay? But they took Darrell, who was a high school project, and they ended up stashing him in the G League, because once they got Shaq, they had to win right away. They weren't a young team anymore. And I'm just putting that out there at the beginning here, because, again, I think if they get KD, they're probably going to have to move 20. But the chance that they don't move it for KD, but maybe get DeRozan or maybe get some. I know everybody's doing that, but it's possible. Get DeRozan or some of these others, or maybe get KD another way. Then maybe the player you take at 20 has to be a little bit more ready to play. If you're pivoting to, if you're not just saying, okay, we're building with Ware and Jovic and Jaquez and Tyler and Bam being the oldest player of the group, if we're going that way. So I just, as you bring up these players, just keep that in mind, because this is what happens when you're doing a 2-track kind of philosophy, and it can go either way. Sometimes you end up taking a player that would have been a great fit for what you were doing, but he's not a great fit for what you're doing now. Okay, so I'll let you start, but just keep that in mind as we go forward. So before the break, let's get to one of your three. We'll do the other two afterwards.
Yeah, so that's a really good point. I think one of the biggest things of this whole entire process is how they lean in the direction if they're going to get like the 23-year-old ready to play guy, or they get the project that's, even 20, 21 years old. That's kind of the interesting part, because there is 2 tracks. There is 2 ways they could lean on it. I'm not the type of person that's like scared to draft the 23-year-old because he's a little bit older. Like I just feel like I think we're past that. Not that, I mean, Jaime, yes, we'll see what that becomes. He had a really good start on the scene. Maybe there's limited ceilings when you get guys at 23 years old. But that's not always the case. I mean, you can still find some certain gems. But I'll start with the guy that I started with on this red thread, man. I think you guys talked about him on 5 on the Floor recently, was Rashir Fleming, who's just like the 6'9" guy that kind of does it all offensively, that has the ability to be an attacker, be a cutter, be kind of a finisher around the rim, but he has like real shooting flashes. Like he has real ability to shoot from outside. I mentioned the idea of like getting guys that you don't need like to tweak their shot. When I say that, I don't mean like little tweaks. Like I look at Fleming as a guy that has like real shooting potential if he speeds up his shot. Like I think there's like a little bit of that in there that they could mess with, but like that's not the stuff I'm talking about. I'm talking about the ones that are like really rough, where they're shooting like low percentage wise and the shot just doesn't look great. Like I don't think that's the type of thing they'll shoot on. But Fleming's an interesting player for this team because, like I said, they need shooting, and he's not gonna be the guy that like jumps their shooting percentage. But if you get a guy like him, you better get shooters on the outside, because if you're running lineups with Bam and Ware, and you have Fleming as your kind of your other guy coming in as your young piece that you can kind of mold and figure this out, and you could run these 2, I wouldn't say 2 big lineups. I know Fleming's only 6'9", just right around there with Bam, but like that's just a different dynamic you can run. We've talked about them kind of getting an identity, getting a certain play style. They've kind of leaned into this big thing over the last year. I'm not sure it's going to stand with the front court. I don't know about the style of play, how it's going to stand. But I'm just really interested in him. I'm interested to see what they could do, because defensively, I think it would be extremely good. Like what they could do with him being a guy that can kind of move around the chessboard a little bit defensively, be a shot blocker. I know he's kind of moved around. He's been kind of a drop guy. He's been kind of could play the perimeter a little bit. He's just an interesting player. And I'm curious to see if Miami did get him in the fold, like how he would look next to Bam and look next to Ware, and they could it just be a different dynamic. My question has been kind of, are they going to? I think they're at a point now where they need to draft for like the offensive potential. Like I'm looking, because there's a lot of these guys that I was looking at, and I'm like, they're really good pieces for a good team. Like even Miami teams a couple years ago, I was like, they would draft a guy like that. But right now with the direction of this team, I'm like, they need offensive firepower. Like adding a Haywood Highsmith if he was drafted kind of guy. Like that's not moving the needle for this offense. They need somebody to juice the offense. And I like Fleming a lot, but there's a guy that I know you guys talked about as well that we're going to talk about after this break that I think could juice the offense up a little bit.
All right, so we'll talk about that after the break. Fleming is a guy who keeps coming up. I don't know if he's going to get to 20. That's one of the questions.
That's the other
here,
part. A lot of these guys are all over the chessboard on the mock drafts. Like they could go 15 or they could go 25.
Yeah, it's a weird draft here. I think, again, there's 5 or 6 real difference makers in this draft, starting with Cooper Flagg, and then there's a lot of potentially really good players, and we're probably wrong about all of them. All right, one thing we are not wrong about is Cash App. Make sure that you check it out. Everybody talks again how old I am here, that I don't know how to do anything modern. I do send money this way, though. I do it all the time. All of our hosts, by the way, on 5 on the Floor have Cash App. Brady, myself, Alex, and even Greg figured it out. So I've been throwing jabs at Greg lately. Anyway, check it out. Cash App, we've got a special exclusive referral code for you. It's on the floor. So off the floor is the Discord server. It's not that one. On the floor, this is what you got to do. Download Cash App, sign up, use the exclusive referral code on the floor in your profile, send $5 to a friend within 14 days. You get $10 dropped right into your account. Terms apply. We say that's money. That's Cash App. You know what else it is? It's safe. It's secure. When you send money with Cash App, they look out for you. If something seems sketchy, you may be sending money to a potential scammer. Those are all out there. They'll warn you and make you think twice before you hit send. It's like having a personal bodyguard for your cash. It's like having a David Holcomb for your cash. If you guys know who that is, you have to know who that is if you're a Heat fan. Anyway, so check it out. If for whatever insane reason you don't already have Cash App like we do, just download it from your phone's app store, sign up, enter the code on the floor in your profile, send $5 to a friend. You get $10 just for getting started. Again, terms apply. That's money. That's Cash App. Okay, so two more here. Mentioned Fleming at the start. Again, that's somebody Adele has talked about quite a bit. Give me another one.
Yeah, so another one's somebody I know that's been talked about, and I saw one of the most recent mock drafts. He was actually mocked to Miami at 20. Is Ben Saraf, who's just kind of the when I talk about like needing a juice to this team, like I think I'm at a point here when they're drafting players, like I said, like getting the 3-and-D guy that has a little bit of potential, like that's cool. Like that they can do it. I think they have a decent ceiling. They could be a good player. But they're at a point now where I don't mind them taking a swing on a guy like this, where he's just somebody that I'm watching the style of play in the NBA playoffs and in the NBA finals and watching how Indiana's running up and down the floor. And that's the way this guy plays. He just like plays super high tempo in transition, runs an offense, good finisher. I know the guy, like if he is even linked to Miami at all moving forward, you're going to hear all the Goran comps because he's just kind of that lefty finisher, has that midi pull up, just has a lot of tendencies like that. And the main thing, he's just an incredible passer. Like we've talked for so often of them. Like when was the last pure point guard this team has had? Like you even mentioned, we talked about in the past where like Goran he was not the passer. No. He was not that guy. And as much as he's getting the comp here, he's not. This guy's like a real under control passer, playmaker, can get the ball on the roll, really good at a pick and roll, but just knows how to read the game, make those plays. The issue is there was a certain thing I mentioned earlier about 3-point shooting, and he is just kind of streaky from three. He's not like a super strong 3-point shooter that you're going to rely on. But when you have all this other stuff to juice an offense, like when you're not a liability offensively, like when you're a wing or a different spot on the floor, it's just different. So I'm just really interested in this one. I would not mind taking a swing on this because I don't know where he would fit into the fold immediately. I mean, with the direction of this team, he'd play pretty quickly, I would expect. But I just feel like this team, even though they're going bigger and stuff, we talked about them needing to play faster, but they're not going to do that with this roster. This isn't a roster right now where they're just going to just play a certain identity, play faster, play slower. They're kind of in the middle ground. So they need something like this to juice it up. And this would just be interested in me if they could kind of put guys in the right position, not have threes playing fives anymore or threes playing ones or all over the place. Like I know everybody hates positions, but like this guy could really just put things in the right place offensively. So I'm interested in taking a swing on a guy like this.
There's a term, it's an eye test term. It's like this guy's a basketball player. So Adele kind of turned me on to him a couple weeks ago. So I've actually watched a little bit of him. And he's a basketball player. Like it just looks like you put him on the court. He has instincts. It was one of the reasons I like Jovic. I guess we just haven't been able to see it consistently enough. He would be a little out of the box for them, but I also think that in the context of what you're talking about, this need for offense, their need for creativity, I think that's the biggest thing. It's not just that they lack pure athleticism. They lack creativity on this roster. They just don't have a lot of it. And it wasn't necessary for a little while because Jimmy could just bully you, pick a matchup, and then slow the game down and all that. But they don't have that anymore. So we don't really even we try to identify an identity with them. We're like, well, Tyler's good at getting his shots off, and he makes a lot of them, and that's pretty much it. I mean, they don't really have any other kind of offensive identity at this stage. So this would change it. I'm curious to see what the defensive fit would be from the start, and how that would work out. I mean, just before we get to the next, I mean, how much do you think Spo would trust him in that regard early on?
I mean, if you have Davion on the roster, not much. I mean, he's going to lean on the guy that's the defensive guy and all that stuff. But that's why, I mean, early on, like I even, not to keep giving the Goran comp because I'm not like a huge fan of it. I just know it's going to get linked because he's like the lefty creative guy, mid-range pick and roll player. But like the things that he was doing for them when he did go to the bench later in his career for Miami, like that's kind of what you can imagine. Like it's not all in the starting lineup. Like I think they could find ways to be creative enough to like at the start of games get Tyler Bam going, or if Wiggins on the roster, or maybe KD. But they need at certain points of the game to get like some type of offensive juice because look at last season. it was like a bunch of defensive guys coming in trying to juice this team. And especially when Jovic got hurt, it was like throwing Kyle Anderson in the mix or Davion in the mix or a lot of these different guys that was just, or Haywood. It was like all these guys that are going to, they're going to be in your grill and they're going to press up and down the floor, but they're not juicing up your offense and making it any easier for you. And as the game goes on, we've seen it gets so much harder to score because they figure out over a course of a game. So defensively would be interesting because I'm curious to see what he looks like defensively in the NBA. He's 6'5". I know, he's around Tyler's build, to be honest. Like he's around that height and everything. So like I'm curious to see what he's going to look like defensively. If it's not great, it's not the best start to it because you can't really lean on him and Tyler for long stretches. But I will say this, Tyler got put in a tough spot because he was told all offseason to work on his off-ball ability because that was the way they were going to lean in the direction. Then Terry ended up not being in the rotation. That Jimmy gets traded. Tyler's just basically forced to play isolation, pick and roll basketball, and be the on-ball usage guy the rest of the season. I'm not saying they're going to put the ball all the way in the rookie's hands the entire season, but like that helps him out a lot. It's no doubt. We always talked about when Kyle got here, I would help Bam or different guys. The way a point guard elevates a team, I kind of look at it like helping Tyler out, just offensively, take the ball out of his hands and put him in the right spots.
Yeah, I could see a scenario where if they drafted him, that again, Tyler starts with Davion. We don't know if KD's there or not, so maybe it's Wiggins at the 3. But he starts with Davion, and then Tyler stays in the game to play with Saraf for 6 minutes and try to get a little bit of offensive flow. All right, but again, he's someone I've watched a little bit, and I'm intrigued by it. There's just certain players that just fit the Miami Heat mold, and I kind of want them to get out of that mold. But if they're gonna do that, then they have to customize some things for those players. And I think we're, again, almost 3 years in with Jovic. He's still just he just turned 22, I guess, 21, 22. So it's not like we're way down the road with him. And again, the injuries have hurt in that regard, but I still feel like they don't know what to do with him. And that's so I'm wondering where this would go with that. Whereas with Davion Mitchell, it's like they knew what to do immediately. There's certain types of players. It's like they just know he's okay. He's going to be a Heat player from the start. I would like to see again them get a little bit more creative. And my hope is that Spo's exposure to the international game would maybe make him lean on the front office to take a player like this. Who obviously has excelled over there. So I'm curious to see what this looks like. All right, let's get to number 3.
Yeah, so the last one, there was kind of like 3 wings I was picking between because there is a lot of like decent two-way wings in this draft, especially like around this range. And like I said earlier, a lot of these guys could be drafted before 20. Like they could go late lottery even, I've seen. But then sometimes they fall late first. So it's kind of been all over the place. One of them was Carter Bryant out of Arizona. And this one just caught my eye because I'm like, I know Miami's done a lot of scouting of Arizona over the last year because of what they found in Pella and Keyshot. And they were just kind of really hard on the scouting there. This guy had to have jumped in on their radar as well, like when they were doing a lot of this scouting. So 6'7", 7-foot wingspan. He's just a really good defensive wing, good cutter. I'm curious to see what the shot becomes, but that's kind of like one of the builds I was describing earlier. Is like, are they going to take a swing on a guy that's probably going to be a pretty good player in the NBA, but like, does he have the offensive upside to take you to that next level? Not that they're just going to be drafting for for that guy at 20 to take them to the next level, but they need some offensive firepower. So he was one of them. The other one that I'm really interested in, and I've seen kind of mixed reviews on this guy, but me personally, I was actually a pretty big fan watching him, was Nick Clifford, who was just he's 23. And I think that's kind of one of the things I was mentioning earlier. It's like when people see that age and him being a little bit older and just kind of he's a two-way player, but it's like, what is he going to be kind of consistently on that end? Like he looks like he has the ability to be a really good shooter. Everything is super smooth. He has the ability to like kind of put up points. It could be streaky, but he's a good off the catch type player. And I think when I said earlier, like about the shooting, I think he's one of those players that like, if they want to make tweaks, it's such easy tweaks because he's such a fluid offensive player. It's so hard to deal with like some of these guys that just aren't fluid. So those were 2 of the guys that I was like, yeah, but the main guy was Cedric Coward, who is somebody I know that's been getting thrown around a lot, which is kind of in that range, 6'7", 215. He's coming up a season. I think he played like 6 games. He ended up having an injury. So he there's not like a huge sample size, but like he has a real history of being a really good outside shooter. He shot 40% from 3. And like I said, it was over 6 games, but it's been like, he just has a good looking shot. He's a physical player. I was watching a lot of stuff from those 6 games where he's like, he just knows he plays like an NBA type game where like he puts his back to the basket. He has a nice mid range. He finds these different avenues to be physical down low. And he's just like a good off-ball player where he's like he doesn't demand the ball. He's like a good kind of team guy. It feels like I'm really interested in him. I think they need a guy. Like I said earlier, they've drafted some wings. Like Jaime was a good example. But like if they're gonna get like a wing like this, a two-way wing, well, two-way is kind of the key there. But a 40% three-point shooter that kind of let it fly like that, like that's what they're missing as well. Like other than the point guard spot and everything. So I don't, like I said, I think they need shooting. It doesn't have to be specialists when they were, when they were possibly going to be late lottery or could jump up before. I remember people were talking about McNeely or different guys. I don't think they were going to ever get like the specialist type guy, but I do see them possibly getting a two-way guy that has offensive upside. Look, there's a guy in the finals right now in Jalen Williams that's like that type of build. Like that's the type of build you look for in a lot of teams. It's just somebody that could do a lot of things. Honestly, this is kind of real high expectation, but like somebody that could fill the Jimmy type like role, not be Jimmy, not play his game, but like play that type of role, because Wiggins, we'll see what he ends up being. Hey, I'm gonna say it again, maybe Kevin Durant. But they're gonna need they might need somebody in that spot to kind of fill those shoes. So I'm interested in some of the wings of this draft. Like I said, there was a couple of them that are interesting, but I really do think they're going to lean offensive upside more than like the defensive stopper. But it's a good balance to get both with Cedric Coward.
I've heard a Desmond Bain comparison to him. Is that fair? Or is it a different player? Bain had an NBA ready body when he came in, right? It was a plus shoot. He's somebody I wanted the Heat to seriously look at that year, and they took Precious.
I don't know. I mean, Bain's smaller. I mean, Bain was NBA ready because he was just strong. Like he just came in like as. But this guy's a little bit lengthier. I feel like he has just like a smoother jumper that could shoot over the top of kind of taller guys. And like I said, he's just, I mean, being 6'7", like he plays inside a lot. And I know it's different. Like college is different because there's guys that are like undersized that are playing in the low post. That's just not going to happen in the NBA. But just being physical, being, that type of player, and defensively, he's just kind of at another level than I think Bain was at coming in. So yeah, I'm interested in that. I'm interested to see, like I said, there's more than anything, I don't really care about the position thing, because especially with the way this team is right now, like I don't really care about that. Like other than like getting a true big inside, like I'm fine with kind of any position. I'm really interested to see, like, I wonder what their board would be on guys and their ages and their experience level. Like, do they like the 23-year-old to come in and kind of fit in with a little bit, like kind of bridge the gap a little bit with Tyler and some of these guys? Or do they want the guy and say, we're just going to go young, go potential, see if we can build out here. And you never know what he'll be as an asset. I mean, because here's the other part of this. I'm not saying they're drafting for an asset, but like Jaime hasn't been a major asset because of the factor, not because of the little bit of a down season, but his age, like being a little bit older. We've seen the teams kind of talk about that kind of not being as much of an asset. And Jovic, even when he wasn't playing, was more of an asset because he had such high potential. So I'm just curious in that. I'm curious to see what the way they lean in that direction.
Well, and a lot of it depends on, again, what we said at the beginning. Are they planning on building their offense around a 37-year-old who's still an elite efficiency scorer? That changes everything. And even if they are planning on it, at this point, there's no guarantee they're going to get him. So we'll see how that goes. I mean, if they got DeRozan, then a lot of this changes too, because then it's like, okay, we got another mid-range guy, and we'll figure all that out as we go. We're going to have to do that mid-range episode again. All right, Brady, appreciate it. We'll do more of these as we go forward. Again, we're doing 2 tracks here. Check out Cash App, download us using the code on the floor, Prize Picks. Use the code FIVE. Have a good one, everybody.